So I've been thinking a lot this week and last week as I was preparing for the message about how easy it is to take God's love for granted. I think as human beings, it's just easy to take love for granted in general. Even like inside of marriage, I realize I've been married 12 years and some days I'm just cruising along like, yeah, of course Jenny loves me. And then like I stop for a second and look in the mirror and think, why? What possible reason does she have other than being insane? Like all my hair is gone. I'm not any more useful to her than I was at 17, and I probably need to be because we have 4 kids. And like, I got to stop taking that for granted, and I definitely got to stop taking God's love for granted. Like, if another flawed human being loves me, like, I shouldn't take that for granted. But if the God of the universe, like, looked at me and all of my brokenness, amidst all of my failure, and said, I want him in my family, I would do anything to have him in my family. That's mega love, and that's the kind of love he has for all of us. And I think if we can zoom out and remember that sometimes, we can have a source of love to share with the world around us that is desperate for the love that lives within us. Like when we have that love, we can give that love, but it's really easy in our American context. In our self-centered, materialistic, self-focused society to just look inwards and not want to share the love that we have with the people around us because it's hard and it means sacrificing it and it costs us a little bit. It's easy for all of us to be like consumers of Jesus rather than followers, to just be in it for what we can get for ourselves. And I think for all of us in faith, it's easy to get caught up in this like American dream Christianity. The gospel is basically Jesus came and died so we could live a comfortable, easy, really safe life, or we could just be saved from hell. And either way, you're either waiting for life to begin after we die, or we're making a mockery of life. Like, consumers of Jesus focus on what God saved us from, like what I get out of the deal, but followers focus on what God saved us to. Like, Jesus didn't just come to save us from sin and death. He came to save us to the lives God made us for. Lives of boldness and lives of adventure. And when we forget about the two, and we reduce the gospel to just like fire insurance and something that's all about me, we miss out on the brilliance and the beauty and the adventure of faith. Sometimes I sit back and I watch like a whole generation walking away from the church, and as much as it pains me, I can't say that I'm shocked. We've like domesticated this barbaric, incredible, adventurous faith, and they're bored out of their minds by the safe, self-focused faith that they see. And I just think Jesus is inviting us to so much more. Like he looked at his disciples, he looked at his followers in Mark 8, and he's like, look, if you're going to come after me, if you're going to live the life that I made you for, if you want to be a part of not just what I saved you from, but what I saved you to, you're going to have to take up your cross and follow me. I don't know if you're anything like me, like if you grew up in the church, or you're a churchy type of person, that's like a really familiar phrase. Take up your cross and follow me. It's one that we've heard so many times, become so familiar that it just is kind of natural for us. It's not shocking. But we got to understand the original audience, when they stood there and watched Jesus say, take up your cross and follow, they were blown away. Like that was not a simple ask for them. They realized that Jesus was asking them to come and die. For them, it wasn't just like some catchphrase. It was an invitation to live bold lives and die fearless deaths. I look at myself and I look at the church in America today, and I'm not sure that a lot of us want that invitation or want to respond to it. I'm not sure we want to live out that kind of faith. We just kind of want to be rich and comfortable and safe and follow Jesus a little bit at the same time. But then I read the Bible, I read stories about Peter and Paul and John, and I think I would give anything. I would trade anything to live the lives and the stories that those guys lived. Like Jesus said, what good is gaining the whole world? Everything we could ever dream of. What good is that if we lose our souls and we lose our purpose and we lose our meaning in the process? Like so many of us trade significance for security, and at the end of our lives, I don't think that's a trade any of us will be happy that we make. We just miss out when we do it. And we make small the love of Jesus to a desperate world that this is just yearning to feel it and yearning to be told about it and yearning to breathe it in. And so my challenge to all of us this week is to like walk out and do neighboring the way Jesus did it. Like if we live as neighbors in this world, like we're citizens of a rebel kingdom, that causes us to be unafraid and to follow in the footsteps of Jesus. It's going to cost us something. It's going to mean sacrifice. It's not a simple way to live, to walk in the footsteps of Jesus, because the footsteps of Jesus led to the cross. The footsteps of Jesus led Peter and Paul and John to die for what they believed, but they made an impact that echoes for eternity, and we're being invited to do the same thing. I can't help but realize that, like, if we're going to follow Jesus, it means walking toward broken people who exist in broken spaces. The kind of spaces that we want to avoid, the kind of places that we don't go. It reminds me of the story of Hosea in the Old Testament. At one point, he married a prostitute because God told him to, and at one point she left him and started selling her body again, and he went to the part of town where people like Hosea didn't go, and he bought her back off an auction block. He went to the places among the people where nobody else would go to buy her back in love, and Jesus' love did the same thing for us and asks us, invites us to make the sacrifice of going to those places and doing that same thing. Heard a guy speak, a pastor, a couple years ago. He's from Montana, a guy I'd never heard of, most of us have never heard of, and he was talking about how he got invited to go meet with some senators and with the president in Washington, D.C., because he's a guy who had sat with Al-Qaeda leaders. He'd met Osama bin Laden, he'd met Kim Jong-un, he'd met all kinds of these like crazy world leaders all around the place, and our politicians were like, hey, can you introduce us to them? Can you get in with them? Can you get us an audience with these guys? How in the world are you sitting down with all these guys? You're just some guy from Montana. And he said he was forced to laugh, and he just said, no, I can't get you an audience with those guys. I can't get you in the door. He said, I eat lunch and dinner with powerful men around the world because I do grunt work in hellholes where nobody else will go, and I do that because the love of Jesus sends me there. And my heart started to beat faster. And I thought, what a phrase. What if the church, what if this church embraced that phrase? We do grunt work in hellholes where nobody else will go. That's what it looks like to follow in the footsteps of Jesus, because that's what Jesus did. He stepped out of eternity into history for you and me, and his mega love changed the game for us. And he's inviting us to walk out into broken places among broken people all around us and just pour out his mega love on them to rewrite eternity for their lives as well. Let's do it.